My name is Jeff Anderson, and to my right is Jim Keenan, and to his right is Al Nishad. Each survivors who found their voice and took some action. Right behind me is Tim O'Malley. He is a longtime law enforcement officer that has now been brought on board to help investigate. And to my left is Bishop Andrew Cousins, and he is here at the behest and the request of the Archbishop. And to his left is the Vicar General, the right hand, I guess they say, to the Archbishop, Father Charles Lakowitzer. We've come here together today because we forged a new way. And that new way is an action plan. An action plan that not only protects kids in the future, but honors the pain and the sorrow and the grief of the survivors in the past. For 30 years, I and the courageous advocates that have been working with us and me and the survivors have been publicly calling for accountability, transparency, candor, truth. And that the children be protected from further harm. And together we made strides. But from all the sorrow and all the pain, we come together today to begin a new day in this new way. And in order to have done that, we have to first express to all the survivors and all the survivors' families, some of whom are here, many of whom are no longer with us for reasons we know, and all those survivors out there in this community and the communities across this land, we, all of us, express our deepest gratitude. Because it is your courage, it is your willingness to share the secret, it is your willingness to take action and to sacrifice further for the sake of other kids that caused Jim Keenan to come forward, that caused hundreds and others to come forward and to be a part of this action plan. Jim Keenan wanted the list that had kept secret known, so the kids would be protected and would settle at no cost unless that would happen. It didn't. John Doe 1 saw in the paper what had happened to Jim Keenan. And John Doe 1 came forward and said to us, get that list, get those names, get the truth revealed, and do everything you can to reveal the truth about the past so that the kids can be protected. And when I know that's out there, I might be able to begin to rest better and begin to heal some. And there's a statement in your packet from John Doe 1 about that journey and where he is today. and I want you to read it. And to all of you that are a part of this day, we express our gratitude. And I'd like to turn to Al Mashad. And Al has spoken before and share what this means for you and your hope.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I'm honored and humbled to be representing the voices of the survivors and the victims in what truly this is a landmark case. For those of us who survive but still struggle, especially for those voices yet to be heard because they live in shame and guilt, not of their own doing, this new era of cooperation is for you to come forward. And I sadly also represent the voices of those we will never hear again. This landmark case is truly for the survivors of clergy abuse. This settlement and new framework gives survivors what we have wanted all along, a way to come forward without being shamed, judged, dismissed, and I hope this is a fresh start for survivors too. We need this safe place and a welcoming place to come forward. We need a caring path for long-term healing, a supportive environment with which to tell our stories and not be afraid. And no longer will we be ridiculed, challenged, or beaten down by the church because the church is no longer our enemy in this. They are our ally. This coming together is historic for many reasons, but none more than this. It's the realization that we, the survivors and the church, have always wanted the same thing. And that's for the church to be a safe place where people and their families can come together and worship without fear and without pain. I am grateful to the brave people of the Archdiocese who reached out to work with us, not against us anymore. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing the right thing, and I am amazed and encouraged by your efforts. However, I'm going to admit that I'm skeptical, because I put my hand out to the church once before, only to have it pulled away. But I hope that everything that I'm hearing today is true, and this is a new day for caring for survivors and from preventing people from having to become survivors in the first place. Now, if there's anyone I trust to make this happen, it's Jeff and his team. Jeff's care, commitment, and compassion have been the driving force to make all this happen. With unprecedented leadership, I trust his efforts will achieve the goals we all have today. And I also want to thank and extend gratitude for law enforcement, and hopefully you finally have the information and tools and cooperation you need to finally bring justice to these perpetrators of these heinous crimes and to bring closure for us, the survivors. Today is an unprecedented day. Today is a day that I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I'd see. But let it be a day of healing. Let it be a day of cooperation between the church and the survivors. And hopefully, survivors, we can all move forward now. And for those of you who still need a voice, please, this is a way to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you noticed, but he had a lot written down. I don't. I've done a lot of these, and seen some of you cameramen before, and some of the reporters before, and every time I was here, all I said was, why does it got to be so hard? Why is this such a journey to get an institution like the church just to do the right thing? Just to be the moral compass that they say they're going to be? Just to keep kids safe, to believe them, and to take the right action? I also know of a phrase that I say in my head a lot, that it's never too late to do the right thing. I would have never guessed that I would look over my left shoulder at one of these and see two priests. There were a day that their health might be in danger of me if I didn't keep my inner demons in check. The collar frightened me. The collar made me want to puke. Growing up Catholic, my family was instrumental in starting Church of the Risen Savior. I had access anywhere in the church. I was ripe for the pickings. It was an honor to hang out with the priest. It was an honor to be his golfing buddy, to be his racquetball partner, to walk into doors that kids that also went to CCD with me couldn't walk in. Nobody knew the price that you had to pay to get into that club. It's an ugly price. Today, I feel like a guy who's maybe climbed the largest mountain in the world only to find out that there was always a simple solution. There was always a simple path to the top of this mountain, and it was for the church to simply do the right thing. And I'm grateful that you have. I'm grateful that there's leadership that has seen the right and path that needs to be taken. I think today, for anybody who's still a victim, who feels like you don't have a voice, you do. You have a huge voice. I fought for 10 years, the legal system, and then I worked alongside with some senators and congressmen that I see in the audience to get this law changed and to open the doors and to help this house of cards blow down a bit. That was a really tough journey. But I've never been to the top of the highest mountain in the world. I think I'm feeling some of the oxygen deprivation that they do right now. But I'm certainly feeling some of the joy. This is a good day. I didn't want to come today because these are hard. They remind you of bad things. But today I'm not going to look at those. Today I'm going to look at going forward that my kids know their dad did the right thing. And that by standing in front of this podium time after time, I've met some men today that said, thank you and good work. You're welcome. It was good work. So I think today is a good day. I think today is a day that we can move forward and I can drive by a Catholic church and not let it know it's number one with me. You guys know what I'm talking about. I hear survivors chuckling because you all know the salute. I can look at my parents who are still devout Catholics and not feel bad for them, putting their faith into an institution that wrongs so many people. I think I can start letting my mom and dad and my mother-in-law tell me stories about their church experiences. I think maybe we can open up a topic in our house that has been absolutely shut down for 10 years. If my brother or my mother rather happens to say, oh, I went to lunch with so-and-so, she doesn't have to go, that's a church friend. Jim's in the room. Little things are going to make a big difference in my relationships. And for that, I thank you, especially you. However Jeff said you forged this, man, you're a miracle worker. Fantastic. I could ramble on forever about the goodness that this means, because I certainly rambled on about the negativity, but I'm glad I did. What do they say? Squeaky wheel gets the oil? All right. Squeak, squeak, squeak. But I hope this is a new day, and I hope that kids are safe, and I hope that members of the church can look at their administration and their leaders and go, okay, finally. So I thank everybody who's had a voice in this. I thank everybody who's printed a story, who's given me an opportunity to say my piece. I thank my wife, who held me when my world was crumbling. I thank my kids for honoring me. I thank Jeff and his staff, Mike, outstanding. Feel like I'm getting an award. But thank you for everybody that's helped me be me and get to where I'm at. And obviously my sense of humor. Thank you, sense of humor. You've gotten me through a lot of stuff. So thank you.
There's a lot of parts to this action plan, and in the handouts there's 17 points. But one of the major points is no longer internal handling. Let's get the best law enforcement talent and a team of the outside law enforcement talent engaged in fully investigating and having access to all the information from the files to the suspected offenders to everybody else, so that there's full transparency and law enforcement people have access to that. Something that has not been done before this action plan protocol. Tim O'Malley is here to address that. He's a law enforcement guy, and he's got a team behind him, and you're going to hear from him.
That's courage. And Mr. Machado, I have to tell you that your skepticism is healthy, and it's welcomed. You hold us accountable. Right?
Well.
I didn't think I had to say that, actually. I figured you would. I've been asked to do a couple things. First of all, comment on my role as the Director of Ministerial Standards, and in particular the level of autonomy and independence that role has. Secondly, I've been asked to describe some of the steps that have been taken in the last few weeks to move us in the right direction, and that I think helped get us here today. And then lastly, to point out just a couple of the protocols, and then go into those in more detail later if necessary. So first of all, a frequent question 3 or 4 weeks ago when I started was, is there going to be sufficient autonomy and independence in the director position that you can be effective and that this will work? I would tell you that in the past few weeks, from the Archbishop on down to the Vicar General, the auxiliary bishops, the chancellors, and all the staff there, they have been extremely generous with their time and have been candid with me with every question I've asked. They have given instructions that I should have access to everything, and those who work with me should have access to everything we ask for. How that's going to play out in the long run, I'm not going to pretend like I know, but I will tell you in the first 3 weeks I'm very encouraged, and I think that what they promised so far has been delivered. Secondly, I want to mention a couple of the steps we've taken, some of the actions that have been taken that I think position us, especially after today, to do the hard work that still lies ahead, and there is a lot of work still ahead. First of all, the Archdiocese has put in place, I believe, people who have the right experience and the right skill sets into the right positions so that we can gather accurate information and make informed decisions. To that end, today we hired former BCA Superintendent and former DPS Commissioner Michael Campion. Today is actually his first day on the job. He has an experience base and some key skills that are in need today at the Archdiocese to face the challenges that we have. As Commissioner, some of you may remember that he addressed some of the most pressing public safety issues of our day, including the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He bolstered that, he supported that, and he made that the vibrant tool that it was to help protect children in today's world. What some of you may not know is that for over 10 years earlier in his career, he was an investigator who investigated criminal child sexual abuse and child exploitation cases. For over 10 years he did that. When you combine his investigative experiences with his broader view of the harm that child sexual abuse causes throughout society. I think we have somebody who will get to the truth, somebody who is prepared and has the wherewithal to get to the truth, and to do it in a way that is particularly sensitive to the needs of those who have been abused and to their families and their friends. Starting today, Michael will be working cooperatively with Jeff Anderson and Associates and others, with law enforcement, with prosecutors, with survivors, to prevent sexual abuse from ever happening again. Another area of action recently has been looking at how we can improve our services to victims and survivors. A number of people have made that tough first phone call, and a number of them are in this room, a couple of them are up here. But we know from Mr. Machad's comments and both of their comments that not everybody has access to services that we want to make sure they can access. In the past 3 weeks, we've met with some experts from outside of the Archdiocese who specialize in child abuse, child sexual abuse in particular. We've met with a number of survivors and their attorneys. We've tried to listen very carefully to not do what we think should be done, but to do what they tell us needs to be done. I think, and all of us think, that it is necessary to establish some independence from those services separate from the Archdiocese. If you read the letter from Dole 1, at one point near the bottom, it says, "The Church has the power to let all survivors know that there is no shame in asking for help. Not only is it okay, but it is recommended and it can be done safely." That's what we're trying to accomplish, and I think in the next few weeks we should be able to do that, to position the Archdiocese to offer resources that are needed by many and haven't been accessed by enough. And with the understanding that if they don't call, we can't help. We want them to know that this is a safe call to make, that we will be supportive, and that they're not necessarily talking directly to the Archdiocese. If they don't want to talk to the Archdiocese, don't talk to the Archdiocese. But get the help you need, and we'll help do that. Last thing I want to mention is a couple of the protocols, just real briefly. One relates to our interactions with law enforcement. We will never do anything to interfere or thwart a law enforcement investigation, ever. We are here to assist law enforcement in their efforts to get to the truth, and to do that in a way that is respectful to everyone, but holds people accountable. Simply, we will follow their lead from this day forward. The other protocol I want to mention is that the Archdiocese is continuing to actively disclose the names of clergy, and this is one of the protocols, who have substantiated claims, accusations against them. We owe that to the survivors, and we owe that to the general public. Today marks a moving from a time of litigation to an era of cooperation between the Archdiocese and Jeff Anderson and Associates and others. Together, we're going to examine facts and evidence. Together, we're going to do this, not in a litigation setting, not in an adversarial setting, but sitting down together, examine that, and do it in a way that we can hopefully determine what names should be disclosed, and do that as soon and as practically as possible. I think this joint process will likely lead to the disclosure of more names in the near future, of substantiated claims of abuse that have been leveled and should be disclosed against clergy. And this process will continue on as long as it takes. Thank you.
I want to do a couple of acknowledgments and also introduction. Right over here is Charlie Rogers. He is the lawyer at Briggs & Morgan that made the first call with Lackawanna to begin this process. And to you, we're grateful to you and your firm for reaching out with authenticity and with Father Lackawanna on behalf of the Archbishop to help this process begin, and to begin the process of building trust. Thank you, Charlie Rogers. None of this could have come to pass but for a change in the law in Minnesota, and the Child Victims Act opened up the statute of limitations in a way that gave survivors a chance to share their story anonymously and to bring suit and to take action. And but for the Child Victims Act in Minnesota having passed, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have this chance together together and to come together to bring healing and child protection. And the champion of that law was Representative Steve Simon. He's right back there. There he is. He didn't do it alone, because none of us can do this alone. But he championed this like no other legislator I've ever seen champion this across the country. He's now running for Secretary of State. That's all you got to know about that. Thank you, Steve. And to all those in the legislature that finally got it, and to the governor who finally passed it. There's also, I saw, I don't know if she's still here, Jennifer Hasselberger, who came forward and spoke truth to power and revealed some painful things that needed to be known. And to all the colleagues who have worked with me, and there's 30 in this room as a part of our team, who have selflessly dedicated and devoted their lives at sometimes great personal sacrifice, sometimes 24/7, to help us reach this point in time and move it forward. I need to acknowledge my gratitude and our gratitude for your selfless and devoted sacrifice. Thank you to all of those that surround me. I'd like to turn it over to Bishop Cousins and Father Lakowitzer.
Thank you, Jeff. First, I want to express to all of you how much Archbishop Nienstedt wanted to be here today. When he left just over a week ago for his long-planned trip to our sister diocese in Kitui, Kenya, to do a mission trip there, we had no idea that things were going to unfold so quickly just over a week ago, or he would not have gone on that trip. Just yesterday, he gave the sacrament of confirmation to over 200 young people in a remote part of Africa and wasn't able to get back for today's press conference. He did put a written statement together, which is in your press packets. I do hope it's clear that we wouldn't be standing here if the Archbishop hadn't okayed this direction and hadn't provided leadership in this direction. And he's really encouraged the work that the Archdiocese began to do with Jeff Anderson and his associates. And it's his leadership that's helped bring about this new day, so we're grateful to him. Second, I want to just say to the survivors and their families and those people who have cared for them and helped them over the years, I do want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this happened. It shouldn't have happened. And on behalf of the church, I want you to hear that we have heard your pain, and that we are open to continuing to hear that. Over the past several months, myself and every member of Archdiocesan leadership has sat down with victims and survivors and heard their stories. And that has deeply affected us, and it's deeply affected the way that we've wanted to deal with this issue. And so I thank you for your courage, because I know how painful it is from having listened to you to tell those stories. So I thank you for your courage in being here, and I'm humbled and honored to be here with you today, praying that you'll see that what we're doing is not about a publicity stunt, not about a slogan, but it's about a deep desire to bring healing. And I hope that you're going to see that not just in our words, but in our actions. Thirdly, I want to say thank you to Jeff Anderson and associates. Thank you for being willing to put aside old pain and go forward to serve a better future. Thank you for believing that a new day is possible. I know that wasn't easy. Thank you. And thank you for working with us for a common goal, which is to provide a safer future and healing for the past. You know, I'm a baby bishop, just been an auxiliary bishop for less than a year. It was actually 1 year and 2 days ago that it was announced that I would be the auxiliary bishop. And if you remember everything from 1 year ago, you remember that that was also a time when this crisis broke in the news of our local area. And I knew when that happened that it was one of those coincidences that God had allowed. And that somehow I and others had to be dedicated to healing. And so really I've tried in this past year, and I can speak on behalf of the Archbishop and all the leadership of the Archdiocese to say that we're working for healing. We see today not as an end, but as a beginning. It's the beginning of what we hope will be a long process, but hopefully a process that brings healing and that provides for a safer future for young people in our church. So it's my constant prayer that you will be able to find us trustworthy of the promises that we make today. It's my prayer that through this, the healing of Jesus will come to many broken hearts of survivors and their families, broken hearts of Catholic faithful, broken hearts of many people in the world. And that we as the church can be about that mission that we've needed to be about for a long time, which is bringing the healing of Jesus to our world. Thank you.
Throughout this year, Archbishop John Nienstedt has directed his staff to put victims first and ensure a safe environment for all our children and youth. Today is not a promise of future action. Today is the announcement of actions already taken and the steps we will follow on a path of healing and reconciliation, restitution and resolution. The true voice of the Church is not spoken when we are on opposing sides and our adversaries. The common ground upon which we stand is the shared goal to work together to assure victims and survivors that no child will ever have to go through what they have gone through. Awareness is a painful process. The leaders of this archdiocese feel that pain profoundly and deeply. We are humiliated, yet we are humbled by the grace of God to be here today. To the survivors here and others watching and listening, the truth and courage of your stories is not our hand reached out to you to help in some way. It is your hand reached out to us, the wounded child, leading us to do what is right, good, and true. I want to acknowledge the unknown silent sufferers who are also watching and listening for signs of hope. Today is a beginning. We will continue to roll up already rolled up sleeves, to work together with Jeff Anderson and Associates, to proceed down a path of cooperation through the difficult task of transparency and accountability. We are committed to healing. We are also committed to justice, particularly as defined by the virtue of charity. I invite all of us to work together, to be the eyes and the ears and the voices for the safety of all of our children wherever they may be. I pray that the darkness of the past be overcome by the light of this new day, a day indeed that God has made.
I know to you survivors and families with whom we've been working and you've been toiling for so many years, you never expected to see the day where I'd be doing a press conference where we'd be shaking hands. But this is a day of hope, and it's a day of promise. It's born of pain and trauma, but it also brings to us a collective, cooperative effort. It's not just promises, and it's not just pledges, and it's not just policies. This is an action plan. And actions protect kids, not words, policies, pledges, or promises. And we're dedicated to that. Mike Finnegan standing behind me, of course, you've seen many times at my side, and he bears and needs little introduction, but he's been an integral part of this process. And Charlie Rogers, Father Lakowitzer, and Mike Finnegan have been coming into our office for weeks and weeks and weeks. And never before had clerics come into our office but to answer questions under oath. But in the last 3 to 4 weeks, they've been coming into our office to join hands with us on behalf of the survivors, to acknowledge the pain, to make sure there are no other kids that are going to be hurt the way so many here and out there have been. And so I'd like to, in acknowledgement of the survivors, invite those that are wearing their yellow buttons to come forward over here for a moment and give you an opportunity to shake hands. Please come forward if you're prepared, and right over here.